Have you ever wondered who somebody is in your life or why they're triggering you and what is your part and how you're responsible for the life experiences you have, and to move out of feeling like a victim and feeling like life is happening to you instead of for you? That's what I do in the Akashic Records. I'm a Akashic record reader of 25 years, and I've worked with thousands of clients to help them understand what their life experiences are, answering those questions and helping them move forward in a very powerful and empowered way in order to create the life that they love. And really, I would say three things to walk away with today is number one, the answers are within you. Number two is you have a right to access your Akashic records. They are yours. You have created what's in there through your thoughts, words, feelings, and actions. And you have the power and capacity to change them and to rewrite them and to create a new direction for yourself in your life.
Have you ever felt like you're fighting an invisible battle? You do everything right. You eat the clean foods. You try to think positive, but you still wake up with that same heaviness on your chest. Maybe it's a physical pain the doctors can't explain, or maybe it's a pattern you just can't break, like attracting the same toxic relationships or feeling a wave of anxiety when everything is fine. It feels like you're carrying a weight that doesn't actually belong to you. And the truth is, you probably are. What if the anchor holding you back isn't in your body or even in this lifetime? Today, we're going to find out how to put that weight down. If that hit home in any way, you're not alone. Millions of people feel the same thing, that they're out of alignment. Whether it shows up as physical symptoms that don't add up, burnout, or a deeper sense that life could be fuller, you're watching the Masters of Wellness podcast, where we help you make sense of what's really going on in your body, your mind, your habits, and your life. Every week, we bring you conversations with scientists, clinicians, coaches, innovators, and people who've walked through the fire, so you don't just get ideas, you get tools you can use. Before we dive in, subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss a week, because if you're here, it's not by accident. All right, now a heads up. So today we're talking about Akashic Records. Now for some, that may sound a bit mystical, but if you read The Secret or Wallace D. Wattles' Science of Getting Rich, which I'm binging right now, it's an amazing book. You know, they talk about a formless substance or a responsive universe. Even Carl Jung coined the term collective unconscious. So for the next hour, please, I strongly urge that you put aside the skeptic in your brain. We are asking a specific question today. Is there a database of wisdom that we can tap into to heal our physical bodies? Our guest, Kelly S. Jones, has spent 25 years navigating this space as a transformational life coach. She doesn't just talk theory, she helps clients identify the root cause of their struggles, whether that's chronic pain, anxiety, or just bad luck. Kelly, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Chuck. Thank you, Ed. Wonderful to be here.
Yeah,
I'm
welcome,
excited.
Kelly.
Thank
We are
you.
super excited too. Actually, Chuck and I touched base with each other yesterday and we're preempting this recording today, and really, really excited about this topic and about meeting you. We were researching your website, looking at some of your previous videos, and trying to learn as much as we can about yourself and the topic. But as Chuck just said, now coming into this session completely open-minded and as a learner, as a beginner, so that we are able to learn as much as we possibly can about this topic. And for people that are hearing about this for the first time, or you're an experienced practitioner or an experienced student of this topic, this episode, I believe, has something for everyone.
I agree. And it involves everyone that's listening anyway. It'll be written in their records.
Exactly. Kelly, we're excited to have you. And for everyone listening, here's exactly what you're going to learn today. First, we're going to break down the connection between physical pain and past lives and how to tell if your anxiety belongs to someone else. Second, We'll discuss the collective consciousness. Is it real or is it science? And finally, Kelly is going to show us the mechanism, how you can actually access this wisdom yourself to start healing. So Kelly, let's start with the basics. What is Akasha?
Great question. So the Akash is actually an energetic field that is a recording device. So it's basically ether, if you will. And it's also out of which everything is formed. So that's why we call it Akashic Records. And it's recording. And a lot of people, when they think of Akashic Records, they think it's a recording, therefore it's the past. But it's a dynamic field that actually includes all time. It resides in the now. Therefore, when we look linearly, we think past, present, and potential for future. So all of that's in the Akashic Records. It's a very unique recording device. Does that make sense? Yes and no?
I'll wait for Ed to ask a question because I know this is more new to him than it is to me. But does that make sense to you, Ed?
Yeah, on a general level, it makes sense. Now I understand more about where it's coming from. And it's not
And
something that people may say, oh, this is like woo woo. Actually, it's not woo woo. It's something that is that absolutely is real. And we may have different ways of explaining it, but certainly it's something that everyone, I believe, has experienced.
exactly. And I would say, you mentioned science earlier, and it's like science is actually proving it is what's happening. And another book that people might be familiar with or want to look at is called The Field. And Lynn Taggart, who's a scientist, has written that. I don't even know if it was 15, 20 years ago. So it's been around for a long time. And so another way of describing the Akashic Records is God's remembrance. So, or a library of light. And every soul's recording, it's a storehouse of our experiences. So it records everything. And there's a woman named Flower A. Newhouse way back when in the mid 1900s who wrote a book. It was interesting, and it said, "Not a leaf fell to the ground without impressing upon this indelible field." So everything, it's so finite. Every thought, every emotion, every action, everything we do, say, think, feel is recorded. And we have a natural birthright to actually access our own Akashic records. We don't just do it through the beta state, right? So I can explain another level of this, like in a way where the records reside, right? And so I've actually I got a little show and tell.
Mm, okay.
Okay. So what this is consciousness and brain waves. And scientifically, we know beta, alpha, theta, delta, right? So when we're in the beta state, we're in our day-to-day consciousness. So we're in the collective consciousness. All right. And so we don't have to, it's interesting. It runs fast, right? We're able to do things and stay in the present moment and be here. It's like we came at a soul level to be focused, right?
Mm-hmm.
But as we move up, we move into the alpha state. We're moving into the subconscious. And the subconscious, we actually, what did I say? It's the collective unconscious, right? That you said Jung spoke of. And the way to access that brainwave level is really going to be deep relaxation. Okay. So somebody might get there in yoga or walking or a meditation or things of that nature. When we move up to the next brainwave pattern, right? Because this has been scientifically studied. And actually, I use a sacred prayer to access one's Akashic records and the brainwaves, the probe. I had a colleague, probes were put on her head to measure the brainwave patterns of what the sacred prayer did to the brainwaves. And it moved them from beta to alpha to theta. So, in other words, consciousness expanded. So when you're in theta, you're now in the superconscious state. And there's a structure in which the Akashic records reside at that level. And so do beings of light that oversee each and every one of our Akashic records so that they're protected. right? It's kind of like, your own account of yourself, your soul, and nobody's allowed in there, right? They're protected.
Hmm.
And then you can move up in consciousness, and then you're really starting to look at the soul level when you're at the delta, and then there's gamma, of course, after that. Okay. So when we're sitting in that theta, we're able to look at the subconscious, and we're able to be in the superconscious. So that superconscious is bringing in this higher wisdom, this expanded state. So how many have you guys ever gone into the shower and just ideas come flying in? Something
Yes.
about the bathroom, right? It's like the
Yes.
running water, right? There's this fluidity. There's this expansion, and there's almost like even a privacy, right? You can let go. You're not on and trying to figure out and how to navigate life. It's just like the sacred little chamber called the bathroom that, with running water near us, and we relax. The mind moves out of the beta and into these other wavelengths that access greater information. So you get ideas, you know?
I've always wondered why the best ideas come in the shower.
I agree. I love the bathroom.
To the point where since I was probably 16, and I need to put this back on my idea board, Ed, I've always thought I need to have something to write down on in the bathroom so I can jot these ideas out, because it seems like as soon as you leave the shower, it's gone.
There you go.
Yeah,
You mentioned
when I was younger and living in Australia, we lived on the Gold Coast, and I've been surfing since I was a young kid. And there's something about when you're sitting out the back in the ocean on your board, waiting for the waves to come, and you just got that rhythm of the water, and it's just so peaceful. Like, it's some of the most meditative and calm moments I've ever had in my life. And I think when you when you're in that state of total calmness and fluidity and just sort of floating, then the mind just can become so open. And I think that's why there's a culture. Like, there's the surfing culture, there's the boating culture, the fishing culture, where people do it not to catch fish, not to get that adrenaline rush of the waves. There's something much greater than that, and it becomes a part of you. You become a part of that culture for your life.
So you're speaking about, you could almost say that state is, and I've studied this, it's hypnotic,
Mm.
right? It's a you're out of the thinking mind. That's the beta. And
Mm.
when you're out of the thinking and the reasoning and trying to figure stuff out, and you let it go, right? You go, okay, this is it. And you, in a way, even hand it over, right? You hand it over to your higher self. You hand it
Mm.
over to this greater aspect of yourself. And
Yeah.
I would say you're also really, let's call it an alignment between the heart and the head. So, right, to access the Akashic Records, we have to be in our heart. And it's the mind that gets us typically tripped up, right? Unfortunately, what we have learned, and it's cycles of time and thousands and 12,000 year cycle. I mean, there's big cycles of time that this isn't our first rodeo show, right? We've been around and around and around and around. So it's what we're trying to do is be in our heart, get the head to become the servant again instead of the master. And what's happened is, right, the heart has been taking the back seat, which is not where it belongs. And we're starting to change that storyline. And part of being out on the surfboard, on the golf course, fishing is about realizing it's not all about, all the doing part, right? It brings you back to that state of beingness.
There it is. There it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Exactly. And so now when you're connected to your beingness, your truth, your essence, and you move out from that place, the mind then follows, right? It listens, right? I mean, our mind goes, wow, that was a good idea. It's like,
Mm.
yeah, it didn't think of it,
Mm.
right? It relaxed enough. And it's interesting, like, think about trying to get something. If we're trying to catch something, for example, we can't catch it with our hands clenched and closed. I really want money. I really want this job. I really want, right? It's like we bear down and we're like, oh, what do I have to do? Right? in order to have that. Well, if I'm doing that, I'm limiting. I'm not opening to receive. I'm contracting actually instead of expanding. And our mind doesn't understand that. And that's where it needs to start listening more and more to the heart. And what the records do is it gives us access to the heart.
Oh, that's interesting.
Kelly S. Jones, you mentioned communicating with beings of light. So, for the skeptical minds that might be watching, is this similar to accessing what Carl Jung called the collective consciousness? Is it the same library, just maybe a different door? Is the beings of light the same thing as the
Beings of
collective
light. Thank
consciousness?
you. A lot of people might be familiar with the term angels or guardian angels or even archangels, right? And so there are what are called the lords of the Akashic Records. And what they do is they oversee with powerful light our records so that nothing alters it or changes it, right? Not a quote unquote good force or not a quote unquote negative force, right? And that's part of who I'm in connection with and contact with, that they're allowing me, with your permission, for example, to access that information. And in order for me to do so, I must have a pure heart. I can't have any alternative, what is it, agendas
Motives.
or anything, motives. Right. Thank you. Also, when you come, the same thing is required. You must have pure intention. So it's really fascinating, right? Because you even said it at the beginning. Okay, put your critical mind to the side. It doesn't mean that you don't have discernment. Your soul is discerning, right? Your soul is. You feel it in your body. You don't need your mind going, oh, I don't know about that, right? Your
Good point.
body's going to tell you. Your soul is going to tell you that feels off. I don't like that. That doesn't feel right. And that's what happens in, right, this interaction is we're to feel and to know for ourselves that wisdom that comes through. So they allow us to access the records. And then when we're in the records, the training I have is with a sacred prayer, with your permission, right? Those two things are like a lock and key, right? Your permission to access your records in the sacred prayer. And I've never experienced anything like it before. You know what? We got to talk from experience. And when someone can genuinely say, hey, I opened somebody's records the first time, and it was just like, my energy just went like, I'll be honest with you, exactly what happened was I felt like I downed a bottle of champagne in 1 minute.
Really?
Yes. I mean, A, you can't do that. B, you can imagine, right? There's no way to do that. So, but you can imagine what it would feel like, right? Like, and all this like bubbling energy. It was just like, whoa, which told me it was real.
Mm-hmm.
And then to have access to the information that was in this other person's records, their history, their story, their experiences. I was like, okay, this is real. I know. And those who have connected with me in doing this work know it because the information that comes through, it's like, how do you know that? So again, it requires the heart and the intention and the presence to be in this field. You're not going to just access willy-nilly. And you're not going to pull out the kernel of wisdom unless you're in that space of heart and opening. Right? Just like in the shower, you're like open. You're not saying, no, it has to look this way. It has to come this way, right? That whole, what did you say earlier? Be, do, have, right? And even when we want the have or something better, because we don't know in our limited consciousness, how much good can it get? How good can it get? How much good can actually come? We have a very limited picture because we're in beta.
Makes sense.
Right? So we're looking to identify what is the most expanded consciousness we can have as much as we can to live the greatest, fullest life that we can.
For the listeners or the viewers, we forgot to mention that before we even started, Kelly S. Jones asked our permission and we agreed, and she opened up our Akashic Records. So we are perfectly okay at any point. And if you want to ask, and maybe this is the perfect time to say,
You asked the question, not me.
what came up when you got connected to our Akashic Records, or to at least mine?
Well, both of you, right? So I was able to access both of your records at the same time, right? Because my energy just lit up completely. I can still, right? You can see it on my face probably.
Yeah.
So, okay, here's what I'm hearing, right? From your records, your guides, the masters and teachers, is there's such a curiosity and a willingness and an excitement to be here, and they're matching your vibration. They're like, yeah, let's go. Let's play. Let's have fun, right? And they're enjoyable. And they're here to help lighten the load and take us out of the sense of seriousness. Everything's got to be serious. I mean, listen, on a human level, I'm really good at serious, right? But it's like in this expanded state, it's like it's so loving. Does that make sense? So
Absolutely.
there's light. There's a lot of lightness. And they love, by the way, what you're both doing here and who you're going to reach and how you're going to reach them. Not just who, the how. And there's something, it feels like there's a wave coming. And you haven't, and that's funny because we were talking, right? They love using these analogies, right? So we're talking surfboard, right? There's a wave coming and you haven't caught it yet, right? Because it's coming. And it feels like, again, time in the records is a very unique thing, right? We experience time here, but there is no time in the records. But if they were to qualify something, it would be in about 6 months, about June, July of next year. There's going to be a stride that starts to lift off. But everything you're doing is matters, everything.
That
So
is
see
great.
it, but see it and hold that knowing, right? Not just the vision, but the knowing in yourself. Okay. So, and how do I say this? Rest. You know, a little bit of like that energy. I think Ed, you were sharing about Chuck just kind of kicking back. That's a good thing.
Do
But
it,
it's
Chuck.
interesting. But
Wait.
it's interesting because here's the difference, though. It's accurate. Yeah, exactly.
I'm not that far back.
But 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 there's a fine tuning, we'll say, about the leaning back. It's not a leaning back as in the hands behind, like, that. It's not that energy. Rather, it's an energy of sitting back in the pocket of knowing, like, this is good. And I know it's good. And each step, right? And this is what the Akashic Records provide us is the next best step. So there's a trusting that you hold, right? When you're leaning back, it's like, I know this is the next best step and I know the next best step is coming. I don't have to chase it. I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to lament over things. You understand? And
Yes.
it allows you to also be very present because that's what the records will do. They'll bring you into the present moment because that's all there is. So if I'm going to relax and be in this present moment, what would be available to me? How much of me would be here now if I allowed that instead of my mind chasing everything else? Does that make sense?
Totally. Ed, have you ever visited with a intuitive or psychic before?
Yeah. Ironically, before I came to China, I had a lot of questions about where my life was, where it was going, my purpose. And I went to a card reader, and some things when I look back later on that she was saying really blew my mind. Like at the time, she said, in 6 months' time, your world is going to be upside down. And that didn't really make sense at the time. And a few other things about relationships and so on. So everything she said later on, I found was true. And the thing about upside down was I'm now living on the opposite, the opposite season of the world to where I was in Australia. So everything about where I am now is the opposite: summer, winter, autumn, spring, that type of thing. So And then the relationship that I was in at the time was challenging, and that lady said that relationship is going to be the best thing that ever happened to you, but it's not going to still be there later on. And it was. I learned a lot from that, and it was not there later on. So, yeah, I at the time someone said, "Oh, you need to go see this lady because you seem like you're really, really stressed." So I went and saw the lady. I was a little bit skeptical. I never really had done anything like that before. And as I was saying to Kelly just before, Chuck, as well, when I first came to China, I came to China with my Western methodology, all about science, and you need to eat this food like this and healthy salads in summer and blah, 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 blah. And later on, I had to learn how to adapt into the culture I was to be accepted. And because Chuck was here just a couple of weeks ago, how quickly he assimilated into the environment because I gave him a heads up. These are some of the things to pay attention to and how to hold your chopsticks, like just some really, really general things that you learn over time, and the way they pour tea and you need to tap your knuckles on the table, the reason why that's true. So he was an absolute legend. Like he was just like rolling in the culture, and everyone's like, this guy is awesome. And really, really, yeah. And he had children hanging off him. Just everywhere he went, there was people just really, really drawn to him. And I think that's because he immediately, when he hit the ground, knew that what he had to do. Don't be an American in China, be a visitor in a wonderful culture. And that's the way he faced it. So yeah, to answer your question, yes, I have attended a spiritual reading and I learned a lot from it. And it's certainly changed my mindset on it. And it helped me a lot when I came to a new culture as well, to firstly have an open mind and to understand that everything that I had learned is only like 1% or 0.111% of what there is to learn. So always be open.
Yeah, I have had a couple as well. And when you were talking, Kelly S. Jones, it was almost as if I felt like I was in a reading. Would you say there's similarities there? Is it completely different? I mean, you're tapping into something else, right?
Yeah, definitely. So there's a cadence almost. There's a word selection, right, that gets precise. So there's a precision, if you will, to kind of bring us right into the point or what is needing to, let's say, shift, be understood, open up within a consciousness. Yeah. And if I can speak to something that was interesting in the sharing here, um, and it relates even to the Akashic Records, is having a curiosity, having that childlike curiosity, right? So when we can be curious, we can again calm that critical mind that's in fear, right? What's this new thing? What is it going to do to me? Right? We're not losing our faculties of discernment, but we are allowing, and then from the experience deciding from there, which you did. So right, and Chuck, you showed up in the Chinese culture and you were curious, you were open, and that's huge. To be open-minded, right, and open-hearted, it's a
Mm.
different pace than certainly the Western world typically is. We want to just know and plow, right? Plow forward, as you shared that.
Yeah. And there's a history of our podcast going back to when we first started. I guess it was more than a year ago. At first, Chuck and I used to have Zoom calls a couple of times a week, and we'd talk about some work-related stuff, but then we'd start to go off on tangents and talk about life and other topics. And we thought, oh, we should record these meetings because we're talking about some really interesting stuff. So we had the mindset at that time is that we've got interesting stuff to share. We want to share it with other people. And that was the seed of the first podcast, was sharing stuff that we know. Now, fast forward to where we are now, my goodness, the Masters of Wellness is not us. It's people like yourself, and Chuck and I now are the students every week and every time that we have an episode. So it's been an incredibly growing experience for us. And oh my goodness, we have learned so much and continue to, and realize that even now we feel we've evolved so much, but we know what we're still only at the beginning. every week we're still at the beginning, because today I'm learning something completely new again, and next week it will be something else.
I mean, you're speaking to something really important, and that's the beginner's mindset. Always. Even going to the records, right? Every time. Going to anything that we do, it's like, how do we let go of our past, this idea of the past, and show up fresh and new? And that means letting go of, right, the beliefs that we have, the emotions, the judgments, the, blame, shame, guilt, all of that stuff that clouds our present moment. We bring this entourage of our history that doesn't need to come. And when we allow ourselves to be fully present in the moment and let all of that go, and that's right, that's part of what we're here doing. We're having experience. We've brought stuff in from the past, right? We kind of touched on past lives. And so what's not resolved gets carried forward. And our soul's like, okay, I didn't do it in that lifetime, or this lifetime created something. So in this lifetime, right? So from our perspective, it looks like we're having all these lifetimes. From the soul's perspective, it's just a throughway, right? It's just the same. It's our soul having different experiences, not really earth shattering when you think about it, but it is an expansion of consciousness that most people don't consider, or a lot. That's not even true. Actually, there are more traditions that understand there is past life than there are traditions that don't.
Hmm.
And actually, every tradition refers to the Akashic Records in their own way. So I was raised Catholic, and in the Bible, it's referred to as the book of life, right? Judgment Day, you go look at your book of life. That's your Akashic Records. It's a recording of everything. The Bible has been changed to say there isn't past lives when it used to have past lives in there.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're your own judge. You're the one that's going in and assessing. You're doing a self-reflection based on things you did and how you affected, interacted with people in your lives, and what that created. And then you make a new plan. Okay, the next life I'm going to do this. And sometimes, right, like you guys have talked about health, right? We've got the physical, mental, emotional health and well-being of ourselves. So we're going to come in with a plan that's going to have something to say about each one. I'm going to have this, I'm going to work through this belief structure. I'm going to have this major life lesson. Maybe it's betrayal, right? And that betrayal turns into some ailment in the body, right? It goes from the energetic field into a more dense field. So anything that lands in the physical first starts out at the energetic. Not that we're not physically energetic, we are, it's just more dense. Moves through the mental, emotional field, then down into the physical field. And so when we start looking from the physical field out, which is what we typically do, I don't want this ailment, I don't want this thing, what happened? It's like, well, how do we jump to what's the emotion going on there? What are the things that are holding it, trapping it, containing it in this physical realm that we can shift the beliefs, the mental, emotional things that are going on? And so we can look at really what our triggers are, what our judgments are, who we're blaming. Those are great places to start. I love it when clients come and they go, well, he this and she that and they this. It's like, as soon as I hear that, it's like, okay, great. We have a good starting place, right? Because then we go, okay, let's look at them as a mirror. What are they helping you see within you? What's your judgment? What don't you like? What do you feel about that? And we start processing it out of the physical field, out of the emotional field, out of the mental field. And sometimes, by the way, I mean, like, it's not always, I'll say it this way, it can happen immediate, yes, or it can take time.
What is that?
What I mean by that is change, right? The shifting. Sometimes it's immediate. You may, and let's say you even, let's see if I can ground this into an example. I don't know. Hold on. Working with a client the other day, having just complete central nervous system reaction to a mother visit. Okay. And it was just like, why isn't this cleared yet? We've been working on it, so on and so on and so on. And I was like, yeah. She's like, I thought we were done with this. It was like the masters and teachers said I wouldn't have this. And I was like, okay, here we go.
Mm.
What happened was, what got explained was, yes, just like a flu or a cold, You never get the same strain, but it doesn't mean you don't get the flu or cold again, right?
That's
So
right.
what was in the past is cleared. Yes. But now she's ready for a new level of healing. And for the first time, and this is where I said sometimes it can be slow. Why? Because the mind, the ego, the personality doesn't want to let go of positionality, righteousness. I'm right, you're wrong, right? Can't, has a difficult time letting go of that. And what she was ready for was to move into a state of actually seeing where the mother actually does love her. That was huge because there was no space in there before. So what happened was, right, the body calmed down when the mind became willing to see things from a different perspective, right? We live in our perspective. Right? It
Yep.
creates our reality, right? If we see ourselves one way, we become that. If we see ourselves in another, we become that. It took a while, right? But I said, we haven't been here before, have we? We've never had this conversation about love actually existing. It may not be the love you want. And that's where we get really tripped up. They don't love me. Well, maybe they do, but not in the way, excuse me, but not in the way we want. And then we don't feel loved, right? But just to add another little layer and then I'll stop. We also come in to learn that.
Hmm.
We're not coming in as just neophytes that have no clue what's going on. We're coming in as brilliant, big souls that have this amazing plan to have these experiences that to the personality can look like, I've never picked this.
What a good segue, Kelly S. Jones, because I have many times since it being maybe even an adolescent daydreamed of what I was in past lives. And I almost always defaulted to somebody who, of course you would like, oh, I was the president of the United States, but I've always defaulted to somebody who was very successful business wise, but in my mind, I did not reach the successes. And I'm here again today, like in this life, to fulfill that prophecy. So that, and then like, as I'm saying it out loud, I'm like, oh, that can't be true because you don't know. But like, that's come to me many times. So you've tapped into my Akashic records. Tell me what what you're hearing, what you're seeing.
Well, first, they want to speak to something which many people may have heard of, where there are stories, because you touched on something in the beginning that I think is important that can help people, the audience, those listeners, relate maybe more easily with what we're talking about here today. And that is where you see children, right? Children that come in and they have memories. They know their grandfather's name. They recognize pictures or airplanes or things of that nature. Or a child comes in, right? Because here's what happens with the child consciousness. They're living in their subconscious. They're a walking subconscious, super conscious without the beta, right? Without the day-to-day stuff going on. They're just a sponge. So they're accessing, right? Oftentimes what happens, we'll start shutting down at about 4 to 7, especially at 7 years old. So we have access to all of this. They also think about the prodigies, those that come in, the Mozarts, they're like 5 years old banging out the big piano pieces because they have access to that and they came in having lifetime after lifetime after lifetime of experience and mastering something and bringing that through. Okay. So it's not necessarily the luck of the draw, right? And also there are lifetimes where people came in and there are kings and queens before, and then they become the pauper because they didn't have that experience. And it's not less than. We judge it that way. This one's less valuable, not as important. But what life lessons and love is that homeless person helping somebody find in themselves, that heart, that compassion, etc. So, to you, right? There's something that you absolutely know to be true. And there's a choice that you made in the past life that actually turned the corner. And it was like you had a choice, and the choice you made took you away from your passion. And there's a part of you in this lifetime that's not willing to let your passion go. So, does that hold true for you?
Man, that's probably such an open-ended thing that could
So,
be.
yeah, you don't have to answer it. I'll throw a tidbit out for you.
Please do.
Consider experiences that have arisen in your life in this lifetime where you have said no to it because it was taking you, you knew it would take you off path. That's part of the tension that you're living and learning, is to stay close to the core of your being, that vibration within yourself.
Can I share what came to
Sure.
mind?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's up to you.
And I don't know if this is helpful or just a selfish waste of time for the listeners. If this is helpful for them, great. If it's a selfish waste of time, tell Ed to go back and delete this part. The only thing that comes to mind, if initially that I said no to, is I wanted to be a professional baseball player. Nothing else was in my mind and in my heart growing up. I just knew I loved the game, and I worked my tail off in high school to get really good. And then got a girlfriend. That girlfriend went to a different university, and I wasn't getting many offers. We won states my senior year. None of us that were seniors got any offers. So I convinced myself, I'm not really good enough anyway. I might as well go to that other school. And I actually could have gone down to Florida to play. Wasn't guaranteed a spot, but I could have definitely probably walked onto that team. So that's a route that a big decision that I made in my life that probably altered many things. But then again, I wouldn't have met my wife. I wouldn't have my kids, you know?
See? So, what I'm being shown and told is that was not your path, baseball. And therefore, you didn't choose it, right? The baseball wasn't your path. Okay. And part of what may help you is to see that the choice you're making and made with your wife and family is success.
Sure. Is my purpose.
But you said to be successful.
Sure. And specifically, I've always thought be successful in business.
I know. I know. You see the difference?
Right. So business and family.
Well, so the mind is afraid, right? I'm not going to be successful in business. It's not about that. When for you in your life and the path, being successful in the family allows for the rest of it to flourish.
There we
See?
go.
Yeah. Right.
There we go.
So you are making the quote unquote, right? I mean, it's the soul, they're saying the soul level choice. The soul level choice was made. There's if I say the word frivolous to you about baseball, what happens? Frivolous. That's showing up for
Really?
some reason. Yeah.
Frivolous.
Frivolous.
I don't know. I've not used that word probably ever.
I don't use it typically either.
Frivolous. But to me, my initial response would be more like, no, it's not. Baseball's awesome. Maybe that was a frivolous decision, right?
Someone given to lighthearted, frivolous. Yeah, it's interesting. Not having any serious purpose or value. That's what frivolous means. Not having any serious purpose or value.
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
interesting.
you're just playing a game and getting paid for it. If you
Right.
well,
So part of what they're showing me is it would not have been fulfilling for you. It would have emptied quickly, right? And so imagine you're there and you know what you know now. That we're going to call that fair in this game of life that we're playing right now. And look at standing at that crossroads where here's baseball, here's your wife. Okay? How does going to baseball in this moment look?
I wouldn't take it.
Frivolous?
Yeah. Yeah.
Not having any serious purpose or value.
Boom. In this show, we do this a lot. If we've had an aha moment, and I'm just that's
I like that. Yeah. It doesn't mean baseball. So the audience doesn't get confused. It doesn't mean baseball is frivolous, right? That choice would have been for you. So what I feel is that had you gone down that pike within a year, year and a half, 2 max, you would have been out.
Would have been probably in the same university I ended up being at anyway.
Yeah. And it would have been unfulfilling. Like you would have been like, okay, that's enough of that. It just would feel like like it was done. There was nothing left in it for you. Like, okay, I did it. So you can rest the idea that maybe you should have, or you missed something.
Well, remember you brought it up when you were asking me if there was a path that I opted not to go down, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to think if there was any other path, but it almost made it sound like you were implying that there was a path that I decided not to go down that I should have.
No, sorry. So in the past life, you opted to do something that took you off your path. So in this life, you were setting the tone to make sure you kept staying on your path. So I was asking, is there anything that took you, right, that you made a decision and it was like, what happened? Where did I go?
Gotcha. Okay.
Does that make sense now?
Yeah. I guess the big question for everyone, including myself, is what is the path? Like, how do you tap into what that path is? I mean, I guess deep down, we're not really ever supposed to know until you
Well,
reevaluate.
it's really interesting. So I'm gonna turn the question back on you to say, what do you mean by that? Right? Because if we're infinite beings, which we are, and we're wanting to have an experience, which we do, we're going to create an environment where we're not going to know. It's not going to be, here it is. That wouldn't be fun. That would be really boring. Like, why bother? Like imagine, I don't know, I guess like video games and you figure out how to get to the end and win. Well, you did it. Are you going to do it again? A lot of people, not everybody, you watched a movie. Are you going to watch it again? You got through the maze, or you're like, okay, why would I do that again? Right. And then we have all this opportunity to experience all types of variations, right? Let's say your wife was your wife 10 times and you had different experiences each time. It's like, let's explore this. Let's play this way. Or I'm my mother's daughter this lifetime. I was her mother in the last lifetime. I was her sister in a different lifetime. I was her brother. And right. So it's like we
Relationships.
shift these roles, right? There's like, they call them soul groups. And so, I mean, have you ever met people and you're like, I know you. I've never met you before, but I know you. Their soul. It's like, I
Mhm.
met somebody the other day and I kept calling her by a different name. I'm like, well, it was your name. I knew you as before. And it took me months to get out of it. It's like, okay, I'll get there. I promise. Right. That's not your name in this lifetime.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to steal the show, Ed. I apologize, but I find this fascinating and I'm about to share a story. But before I share a story, Kelly S. Jones, which, by the way, can I just call you Kelly? Okay.
Yes, please.
Great. Great.
I don't know why you keep doing that. Yes. Kelly is
Obligated to call you Kelly S. Jones.
no, no,
Uh,
I appreciate it once.
so, Kelly
Yes. Chuck,
is my team, my Akashic team, saying to you about my son,
about your son. Do you mind giving me his first name?
Chandler.
Chandler.
Last
Okay.
name Smith on his driver's license.
Okay. So to open the field up, right? Because this isn't psychic.
Got it.
So open the field up a bit more. Do you mind? Because I know we're public. Do you mind sharing his age and what subject area you want to look? Because here's what happens in the records. It's like going on Google.
Good
You
analogy.
open this vast field and you go, and it's like Google goes, okay, what would you like? Right? And when you type in the question, that's what starts becoming the pathfinder, right? The direction that we're going to look. And I always say there's no whiplash in the quantum field. We can look any way you want, but we need to start somewhere, right? So in this case, they're wanting us to narrow the field a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
What is
What
it
if you type
about
into Google?
Chandler? Yeah, how old is he? Is he at home? What is your heart's concern?
I don't know, I'm sort of testing you, but also the Akashic Records because of a story I was once told, and I want to see if it lines up. Okay. Because it would be amazing if it does. Okay. So my son's about to turn 7 on the 23rd. You know his name. What else you need to know? Oh, he's here. He's in this
Is
beautiful.
there a certain area you're wanting to know? What are you wanting to know? Like
Yes.
past
I want to.
life? You're wanting to know past relationship with him? You're
What
wanting to
is our relationship in past lives? What was it? I think from what I was told, it was many, but there was something that happened in a past life that helped my wife and I get through a situation with him in this life.
Okay. So hold on. Let me just let them answer however they want to answer. Okay. I'm being shown something very different, perhaps, than what you're speaking to. As you said, there are many lifetimes. Okay. And what they're showing me is that the two of you were in battle in the past and he saved, saved your butt. They're saying it saved your butt. And
Holy
I'm seeing it
moly.
connected with water.
Do you remember that story? Wow.
Is that the same story?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Wow.
And we did not script this, guys.
No,
No.
I
I
have my
thought,
yeah,
what?
I have my
Yeah,
show notes up.
if
I'm
only
not even
Kelly
reading it.
really knew the real story. Holy mother of
I didn't
God.
think I was going to get that story you were asking about. So I guess they gave it to you.
Yeah, they did, and it was through Trinae. So Trinae is the local Reiki specialist that I used to see, and originally reached out to her because when we moved to Virginia Beach, we found out my son needed a liver transplant before his third birthday. He's now celebrating his 4th year with a portion of my liver in his belly because we were pretty stressed out, and Leah had to sit there while we were both going under and in the hospital and a 6-month-old. So it was a pretty stressful environment. We were looking for something to help us with the stress, and Trinae is also intuitive. So she just talked to us for a couple hours, and in that conversation said, "Look, you and Chandler have known each other for many lives. At some point in the past, he's saved your life. And he knew coming down here that before his 7th birthday, you were going to be saving his life. And he agreed to it. And that is
Because you
crazy
wanted to gift him back. So I have to ask you a question again. Ed will bring you in a moment. If I may ask, and you again don't have to answer, did something happen at 6 months old?
for him. He was born with biliary atresia. So he was 2 months early, born 2 months early, so premature, and just born with not all of the bile ducts connected to his liver. So he was sort of born with it, not anything happened specifically at 6 months.
Go back and look. Go talk to your wife.
Okay.
This feels like there's something at 6 months. Okay, thank you. It may not be to him. It could have been you or your wife. There's a piece there. It feels like there's something that was how do I say this? A precursor.
To the
Something
liver.
showed that this was coming, prepared you. Something prepared you about 6 months. And what I can't tell is if it was his 6 months, because you said he was premature, or was he more like 4 months, right? If that makes sense, or 8 months, just
Yeah.
so you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So kind of look around that 4 months of age to 8 months of age, somewhere in that window to see.
We'll look into it and we'll report back to all the millions of viewers that want to find out. Because, wow, I cannot believe you nailed that. I mean, I can, but I'm so happy that you did.
They're happy for you. Yeah. They're happy for you.
This is wild.
Well, and it's interesting. I remember one of the very first Akashic sessions I did, right? I was scared to death. I was like, oh, and then I realized it's not about me, right? And that's what's interesting, right? So that's why it's important you come with an authentic heart, because it's not about testing me. It's not about me. It's about you and them. So I'm a reporter. I'm
Mhm.
just sharing with you what your guides that love you want to share with you. And so one of the first sessions was a very new acquaintance, very skeptical, very skeptical. And I was like, well, let's play. Let's see what happens. And so I opened her records and I immediately get this vision of like a 12-inch by 4-inch black velvet red rose on it image. And so I describe it to her, right? That's what I'm supposed to do. I don't hold anything back, if that makes sense, right? So I'm sharing the images I get. And she goes, you know what that is? And I'm like, are we on the same plane here? I was like, how am I supposed to know what that is? I just opened the records for you, right? So my mind is like, well, of course not. And she then went, I did that 50 years ago. I painted that on a black velvet
Wow.
tapestry. I'm hoping we are now past your, right? What was it? The skepticism. It's like, okay, we're connected to your guides for you. So I always get amazed and I'm like, are you amazed? Are you as amazed as I am? This is awesome.
It is awesome. It is awesome. So can I ask a clarifying question so that way I can do a little bit more brainstorming on your question or what they're asking you to ask me? So are they saying that there was something that happened in the 6-month window that caused him to have the liver transplant, or make us know that
No,
it's coming?
something showed up and it's interesting because now they're telling me it could have been a dream. Did you have a dream journal?
Maybe my wife did.
Check.
I don't tend to remember my dreams.
Something prepared you.
Okay.
I don't think you're conscious of it.
You know what it could be? Remember, Ed? So I've talked a lot on the podcast about how weird it was that I couldn't drink beer. Like I literally couldn't drink beer.
I just got chills.
Okay. So that's it. I would sneeze every time I drink a beer. I'm like, what is wrong? I'd go into, we had an anniversary together and we went to a brewery for an anniversary dinner because it was next to where we got engaged. And as soon as I walked in, I'm sneezing. I can't even stay in the building. It was wild. And I had always thought that my body was telling me I needed to get ready.
Interesting, right? Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah, it's interesting what we forget, but the records hold the memory for us, right? It's the
mm.
memory. It's a living library. And it's interesting because it's a language of light. We are light beings. Words are actually spells, right? Words are a reduced, a lower vibration than our heart frequency, than, right? Think about telepathy. We're moving to telepathy. It's like, then we don't have to have languages. Spanish, Chinese, English, so on and so forth. It's like we can communicate without all of that, but we've chosen this experience too. So when we're in the Akashic Records, when we're accessing that, right? Like you're in the shower and a thought comes, there's no language, there's just this knowing. And so what I do is I use words to put that knowing, that information, that light language in a way that right now we can understand. And that's why, right, it's so important for me that I can contain the vibration as well as, what's that word that's going to really hold the vibration and touch you, right? Connect with you energetically, that you feel it and you go, you know what I'm saying?
I do. I feel like I have hijacked this show. So for the viewers, I apologize. I hope it's been entertaining. And if nothing else, now you know this stuff is real. Like, come on. But Ed, please, I feel like I'm hijacking it from you too, man.
No, absolutely not. And I got goosebumps as well, Chuck, because I do know the stories along the way that both of us have experienced. A lot about me as well. But yeah, to hear her talking about that, to hear the team sharing through Kelly about that information was giving me goosebumps. There was one thing that Chuck said a little bit earlier if we go back to the topic of baseball. And I think I had an aha moment on behalf of you, Chuck, that a few times in the years that we've talked about this, you talked about professional baseball and that was a possible career path. But you said something today. You said, I just love playing the game. And then I thought to ask you the question, do you love waking up at 4 a.m. in the morning to go to training, to go to stretching, to do 1,500 throws and catches every training session, and to be on the road traveling and blah, 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 blah. Like there's a whole list of things that accompany being a professional baseball player. Or do you just love playing the game baseball? Because guess what? You can still play baseball anytime you want, right? You can still have that thing that you love without having to have all of the responsibilities and the extra added things that people don't really think about. That's required to be a professional level athlete. So just throwing that out there, I think I had the aha moment for you.
Not to debunk your aha moment, Ed, but when you were saying that the only thing I wouldn't like there is 4 a.m. traveling away from family. But once I was up, all those things, all the training aspects of it, I absolutely love it.
No, did
Really?
you?
Love you. I could throw all day. I could hit baseballs all day. I could lift all day. You put me out there. The whole aspect of getting good at baseball, loved every second of it.
Well,
So
that in itself is telling as well that it's the willingness to practice something to perfection that says something about your character as well, whether it's baseball or something else. I think if you apply that character trait to anything you do, it will happen.
for sure. Well, Ed, what questions do you want to ask your Akashic team?
Okay. My Akashic team, speaking to you through Kelly, I have found through my life that I've gone through waves. Maybe this is also going back to what I spoke about the ocean before. My entire life has been a series of waves. And those waves are extreme, big highs of wealth and love and opportunities, and also extreme lows of looking for coins and feeling lonely and not having opportunities. But I've learnt over time that every time there's a low, just because the actual science of a wave, every time there's a low, there's also a high coming. And I've just learnt over time that life is like that. When things are really, really good, enjoy the moment, but be prepared because the wave will always change. And likewise, when things are low, to don't feel too down because the up is also coming. So I've kind of learnt this, and now in my life, my love, my family, so many things are really, really high. But there's one thing that's a little bit low, not exactly where I want it to be, which is the wealth creation part. And this is something that I have been working on with our transformation coach about changing the mindset around that so that I be the person that attracts it as well. So I guess I want to ask my team, is there something that you're seeing that I'm missing that is on the horizon, or something that I'm not doing, or something that I should be refocusing at this time around wealth creation?
Okay. So they've said a lot of things. Now I have to get them all back.
They're like, Ed, it's a long question.
Yeah. And it's good. So part of you, right? You've been in the training, right? Talking about training, baseball training, right? You've been in training and you've recognized let's call it the two extremes, the ebb and the flow, if you will. But also recognize that, and it's interesting, while we can have it all, we're not always developing it all at the same time. So there's a priority that you just put in place, and you put yourself, your true self, as your priority. And that's often a difficult place that people, is it really rarely? Yeah, we can even say rarely get to, where they prioritize themselves. And part of that was love. So we were having that conversation earlier. You have prioritized love. And what love can do is love can envelop and contain wealth in it. But without that, there's more of the ebb and flow. With that, it can, in a new, bigger bubble, create and sustain the wealth that you're speaking of. So the wealth that you're speaking of is not wealth you've experienced in the past. So perhaps it's time to let that go and not use an old model, an old framework of which wealth actually resides. It's coming from a very different place that's in the center of your being. So it's a wellspring that you're tapping into, as opposed to it's something outside of you you're trying to attract. And now we're sitting in the essence of the being the energy of wealth through the experience of love. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I just was reminded of a memory. One of the unhappiest times I've had in my life was sitting in a Ferrari. And one of the happiest times I've had in my life was riding a bicycle. So I think I have evolved enough to understand that the material things is not what I'm looking for. I do believe I've surpassed that level. I guess I just want to, I absolutely agree with you. Everything in my life right now, I would not change anything about it. So if I wanted to go to the next level, what would that be? Is just to be able to attract more abundance so that I don't need to, at the end of the month, think about how am I going to manage this particular thing that's coming up. Or if there's a holiday planned in the future, how do I make that a really wonderful experience without having to be too concerned about where the money's coming from, that type of thing. So I just want to reduce the stress around having money more so than anything material wise.
So there's two things that are coming up. One is the concept, the idea of doing more with less. Have you ever heard of it? When you do more with less, you can have more. Let's see. When you do more with less, you need to do less to have more. So part of those bottoms taught you that. What they're actually doing is they're working on your energy field.
Mm.
They're shifting some things around for you. So I do, right? You mentioned Reiki earlier. I was directed to do something called Christ light transmissions. And so it's kind of interesting, right? That the Akashic records are more, if you want to say, the heaven energy, your higher self energy. The Christ light transmissions are more the human, the physical, right? So the physical, mental, emotional. And so I also do other things. Anyway, so they're working through us here now, helping to shift your energy because there's an incongruence that's happening, that's been happening, that's being aligned and corrected. And by them asking you and me asking you to restate the question, it's going to shift within you when you restate it.
Yeah, that makes sense as well, because just over the last few weeks working with Kurak on our transformation journey, one of the things that came up there was the stigma that I had attached to being rich. I used to have a negative stigma attached to rich people. I'm not really sure where it came from, but I certainly have been working on letting that go. So the question, to make it really, really simple, is there anything that they can guide me? What kind of guidance can they give me
Thank you.
to make me as
Sure.
attractive as possible to the abundance that is on the way, so that I don't miss it, so that I'm in the right place, the right time, and that I am open and wow, just bring it, baby.
So your new key word is serve.
So
Serve. Serve. By focusing on serving, you bring through you what others need from you, and that creates a pathway back to you. So that's part of the disconnect also that has happened in the past. There was no through fare. There was no, right? It was like it stopped at the Ferrari, it stopped at this, and it stopped at that. And it was like, I'm down here and I'm up here, but I'm alone in that, right? I'm here, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here. Now you have a partner. Now there's one to actually serve even within your own, right? Your own being, as you feel like you're becoming, not that you are one, but there's an energy vibration of unity, which is one, which is the consciousness of humanity, where we're moving to, right? Is that unity consciousness. So in holding that, right, there's no separation between serving you and serving me. We are one and the same. So as you shift into that frequency and that vibration, and both of you are doing this actually, right? So there's an abundance, there's a wealth that comes from that in and of itself.
Mm.
And you call forth a greater aspect of yourself to serve through you. You don't get in the way of it.
Mm.
Then you're in lockstep with your spirit, with your soul, and it's guiding and directing, and you listen and you follow, right? This feels right. That doesn't feel right. Let's connect here. That guest isn't the right next guest. Love to have them, but we need this person. We need to shift things around, right? So that old way of thinking is not causing you to stay stagnant or in an old mindset of, well, it has to be this way. That even that idea that they shared here is a very three-dimensional. It's third dimensional. Well, because I said this, I can't change my mind or things can't shift when the universe is rearranging all kinds of things all the time. And they're wanting me to share this with you as an example, which I think touches on a little bit of what you both said, which is, I mean, I have seen a full week schedule. Everybody, like a, I don't know if you know the AMC theater, right? They've got these rolling tiles, like from the upper left down to the lower right. It's like, this ripple effect. And I've seen, like, it was like one client after another, after another, after another, another. Need to reschedule. I'm like watching this, like, this is amazing. This is amazing. Like, it's so out of my control. It's like, oh my God, this is like, okay, clearly I need time off.
Yeah.
Clearly. The whole week got emptied. I was like, unbelievable. 7 straight days. I was like, okay. And they all reschedule. So it wasn't like abundance went away. I needed an abundance of self time, of downtime, of connection time, of they need to talk to me, right?
Mm.
Like nobody else is allowed here. So, in other words, what that says is another way of saying that is don't be afraid when things don't look the way you think they should,
Mm.
right? The old mindset is like, oh, it's just like, oh no, you're in charge of and I'm allowing them to be in charge. I'm allowing my higher self to be in charge and to
Mm.
tell me. So
Mm.
if it doesn't feel right, like I'm feeling like you feel at your gut, is that accurate? Do you feel like at the belly button, kind of like right above? Like you
Totally.
get
Yes.
feelings? Yeah. It's just like, it's like that's to be listened to.
Mm.
Even like here and what you're creating and co-creating here, even your timing, right? You got this great schedule, as great as it is. One of you might feel off and go, man, this is not the right time for me. And you rearrange it with whoever your next guest is, and it will work. What is meant to be will work. And it will then carry that vibration. What you're serving the highest good. You're serving something bigger than yourself.
Mm.
And I'll tell you one other thing they want me to tell you. Invariably, every time I need to reschedule, which isn't often, right? It's like I don't make a habit of this. It's just like, okay, sometimes I've got to reschedule with a client. It always works for them, always. It's like they were like, oh, I'm so glad I didn't let them, like, that was amazing. And vice versa. So I don't have any fear about that, right? It's just like there's a bigger, greater force that knows so much more than my little mind
Mm.
and what I things have to be and how they have to look and all of that stuff. And it's
Yeah.
like, okay, right? Yeah.
And Kelly, that's been really helpful. That is really helpful over the last few weeks. Like Chuck and I have had lots of great time together. We've been talking about the future of the podcast and the direction and how to reach more people. We've never talked about this as something that's going to make us millionaires because that's not the focus. The fact that we get to meet people like yourself and learn so much is 10 times more valuable than any type of monetary value. The thing that I've personally been facing is when we go online and we see how to optimize our channel, how to get more subscribers, how to do discovery calls with clients, how to build your network. Like there's so many questions, so much information out there. And then you've always got people booking you in for calls. There's a person that I spoke to yesterday. marketing expert. They're going to redesign my website. There's another person that's going to help me do this. There's another person that's going to help me do that. Like, your mind is getting pulled in every different direction because you think, oh yeah, that person told me this is really, really important. I need to do it. And likewise, this person. And the more we dig, the more directions we get pulled in. But what I've just found today is the answer is not out there. It's not out there at all. It's already existing inside us. And I need to listen to that first and then decide, who do I need to help me with this thing that I already know I need help with, rather than people telling me, you need to do this, that, and so on.
Good. Exactly. Right. Because that's being in the head. I got to run here and do this. And I got to run here and do that. And I mean, it's like we could be busy beyond measure trying to get like the mind is never satisfied. Okay. It's never present. It's always in the past or it's always in the future. It's never in the present moment. And your spirit is here now. And that when we're connected, right, we can feel into, right? That's kind of the antenna of the body. We can feel into, is this feel right for me? And the mind might go, oh, hell no, right? But it doesn't matter. Or other people are telling you, no, 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 no. And you're like, this feels like the next best step. My being is telling me.
Mm.
And don't be surprised too, right? Sometimes there's like that long, I'll call it a long incoming where it feels like nothing's blipping and then boom, right? So it feels like,
Exactly like when you're sitting out in the ocean and the waves always come in groups, right? In sets. And
okay,
the pause between sets can be a while. Sometimes it might be 12, 15 minutes. And then suddenly, if you look on the horizon, you see the first one coming, and then behind that the next one, and behind that the next one, and then you got this set of like 5 or 6 perfect massive waves heading towards you, and you need to be in the right position, so you're sort of jostling with other people to make sure you're positioning yourself. And which one am I going to get? Am I going to be on the first wave? Oh, the second one looks a little bit bigger, it's breaking nicer than the first one. So then there's all these calculations and decisions being made when the opportunity is right upon you. But certainly, that what you've just explained there is so totally goes back to that, the way the ocean works.
yeah, it's exactly right. And it's interesting just to kind of tie that together with what we were talking about earlier, right? The ebbs and downs, the ebbs and the flows. The down, and this was another piece of the message that I'm bringing forward now. Can you hold the same frequency in the downs? In other words, you're not describing the down as worse
Hmm.
or less valuable or unimportant, because there's so much richness that's actually coming from that tension that builds within us. It calls forth, right, a new awareness within our capacity, our ability, right? We're powerful and capable people. We forget that. And it's in those moments where we have to find that within ourselves. So it's not lost on us. And then the rise happens. Why? Not the rise just happened. It occurred because of something happening within you, an alchemy that's taking place within you. So it's not something just came to you from outside. It's the result of the birthing of a new version of you from inside.
Thank you, team, for communicating this to me through Kelly. Wow, amazing.
Yeah.
Like, one of the things that came up when Ed mentioned that he, like, the question again, he repeated it and he said something like, I don't want to miss the opportunity. Like, help me basically be vibrating at that same frequency so that when the opportunity comes, I don't miss it. Wouldn't his team tell him that wealth is in things, in everything in the universe is abundant, and that there's no scarcity, that he doesn't need to worry about missing anything?
I'm going to say it a little different. So, what I'm being shown is the idea, the question is really coming from a place of, am I going to turn my back to it? What within my energy field or choices that I make will look away from it and therefore not be open to receive it, right? I'm looking in a different direction. I might be distracted from it. Okay. So, yes, everything's The universe is abundant. There's wealth everywhere. It's here now. And we're just saying, well, what is it between me and having it? Right? Is it, am I blocking it? Is it not the right time? It's not, they're like, big point. Talk about that. Okay, let's talk about it. Divine timing, right? There's something called divine timing. And divine timing is so important because, right, we can sit here and go, well, I want this and I want this and I want this and I want this and I want to experience this. And it's like, but if the divine timing is off and we're in our mind, which wants to force and push an issue, what happens is either we go off the rails, it goes sideways, we get into the wrong partnership, we create problems for ourselves and things can implode or explode, right? Either one. But when we're in divine timing, we're allowing, we're accepting. This is where I'm at now. If I'm trying to push something, right, I might end up with 5 coaches going, oh my God, I'm not moving anywhere. I'm just staying still because I haven't been able to implement, let's say, any of that, right? But when we're in divine timing, the beautiful thing about that is when it shows up, you're ready. Most people miss that point. Can you imagine being ready? And it's like, you know, you've got all this stuff happening, but you don't have the technology. You don't have the organization. You don't have what is required. And there it goes, what just happened? And we're talking about, don't you love it? The spirit sets this stuff up. And it's just like, things go off the page.
We don't have the technology. See ya.
And then he goes, he'll be back.
Yeah, keep going. Feel free.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, divine timing is critical that we not fight with the universe and say, you know, kind of, I mean, listen, God can handle it. The angels can handle it. I've done it. We've all done it where, you know, like getting our fist and going, you know, I'm mad at you. And why don't you do this? And because we're not ready. And so the question isn't, why aren't you, God, source, universe, giving me what I want? It's what is it I need to do within myself now, my consciousness, to prepare for it when it does show up? Because it's coming, because we asked. It may show up different, right? Like, for example, you choosing your wife, that was the sole passion. Doesn't mean, by the way, you don't have a son to play baseball with. It doesn't mean you don't have baseball games to go with, right? It doesn't mean you may not coach in the future. It doesn't mean you are not going to be on a team in the future. It just might look different.
Sure. Exactly.
Right?
What for Ed and me, but I'll speak for myself for now since we lost Ed for a second.
Okay.
You mentioned that they wanted to say something and divine timing was that mentioned. So I'm trying to reorganize my question here. What is there anything in my life that they have observed as something that was not a divine timing? Like I shouldn't have done that, or it was a path that like they didn't necessarily say I had timing for, but I chose it anyway.
They're actually saying that's not a question you really have in your heart.
Okay. Fair enough.
How does that feel? Yeah, but I wanted, like, how does that feel?
Well, it was interesting because we were going to go down a story path if they got it, if they nailed it, and you know, but at the same time they kind of did nail it because this decision, this venture that I made, that I'll name nameless, but it led me to meeting Ed. It led me to, you know, maybe some would say, at least in my gut, it led me to being diagnosed with cancer because of the stress and the lack of mobility that I was in at the time, which also spawned this podcast and has now turned me into a very, very healthy person. So, you know, yes, it's not in my heart to know that but I guess I asked that.
Well, you knew the answer.
I did. I was being tricky again.
But look at what they did.
Yep.
Right? So in other words, right, they don't need you to test them.
No doubt.
I mean, that's what happens, right? So and what's lovely, even, right, so we can be helped with our questions, right? So what they can even help, like, so we had that as an example, but then we have other questions where sometimes it's hard, right? It's hard to formulate what's my heart's question. And so we bring a question forward and they help to go, here's what you're really asking. Here's what you're really wanting to know. And it's like, oh, thank you, right? There's this sense of being adjusted, kind of like your tie being put on straight. And you're like, oh, thank you. That feels better. Does that make sense?
It does. Something came to me a little while ago that made me want to ask this question, because I feel like we've opened up a door here. And how often does our teams, now there are teams, that's fine, right? But I'd imagine they want more to tap into, work with experts like yourself to connect with them, right? There are other teams out there that are friends with my team mates that are saying, hey, tell them this, because then more people will be open to this, right? So what would they like to tell the viewers or say to the viewers to help them?
Great question, because it's really important to understand. Well, oh, by the way, okay, they're throwing something in here. Someone. Have you ever heard of Edgar Casey?
Yeah.
Edgar Casey accessed the Akashic Records.
He's in his Edgar Casey
That's right.
hospital is in Virginia Beach.
Edgar Casey's ARE is there also.
AR.
Research and in AR, you know about the ARE, right?
Yeah, I think they're next to each other. Yep.
So I'll just share a personal story. I went there and taught there
Cool.
many years ago. Yep. And when I got there, I was taken up to Edgar Casey's Chaise Lounge, and it was behind the red ropes. And the director at the time opens up the red rope and said, "Would you like to sit down?" No, lay down. He says to me, "All we've done is reupholstered it." And I looked at him like, okay, this was behind a rope. And you're telling me like, that's all we've done is and I'm like, okay. And he goes, "I'll leave you. Come on down when you're done." I was like, okay, there's something special happening here.
Yeah.
And I laid on it and I felt like I was in a grave. It was like out of, right? It was like, so we're not in, right? The records. I mean, it's interesting. We're in our records, we're our living records, but he himself would leave, right? It was like he would leave the body because he was in a complete trance state to access them. I'm not. I'm a conscious channel, right? So I'm aware. I can have this conversation and that conversation at the same time. What they would like the viewers to know is that the purpose of the records is so that we can really remember the truth of who we are, know why we came here, what our purpose was, what our soul lessons were, things that we have brought and have talents and skills from the past that we can bring forward, past in the sense that we've lived them before, right? Even though there's all now time, it's kind of like I look at it like records on an old-fashioned record player where they're stacked one on top of the other, and those are lifetimes. Okay? But
Hmm.
when we live here, we feel like this, right? The linearity in time. Okay? So that's the difference. Kind of quantum and linear. And that their role in our lives is to help us to heal patterns, let's say, that we have, to understand, let's say, who somebody was in a past life, what our past relationship was with somebody, why something might be so good, why something might be so challenging. What am I to learn? What happened? Okay. So when we get this greater perspective, they bring a perspective that allows us to move outside of judgment, outside of conditional love. And they hold only unconditional love for us and complete non judgment. And that's a very, right. We're usually walking around here going, I'm afraid somebody's going to judge me. So I don't say something or I act a certain way or I don't want to rock the boat, that kind of thing.
Hmm.
And so we're learning how to move outside of that construct of social, the social norms and what the family has raised us to be. And let's say even my father wanted me to be a doctor, therefore I am, and I hate it. Right. So how do we break these patterns and do it with grace, do it with as much ease as possible? So that's their role in our lives, is to help us remember who we truly are, to align with the frequency of pure unconditional love. We don't know on this planet what love is. We think we do. Yeah, we definitely just think we do. So I hope that kind of answers the question. It was a great question.
I absolutely think it did. Would it be possible to ask them if there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever the number is, who cares, steps that someone can take to be, to further understand this themselves, the practices they can have at home, maybe things that they can do to get a deeper knowing or connection with the Akashic people or Akashic angels?
Call them angels and guides and masters and teachers. So it's all of the above. Well, let me just say this. I do teach. So if people want to join, right, like my newsletter at some point, they'll have that information. They can email and let me know because I don't have a class going right now, but I can put one together if I have enough interest. And that is to use the sacred prayer, which is how I access the records to do what I do. But people can access their own records with the prayer. Number two would be, right, because the records are in our DNA, they're in our iridology, our fingerprints, our face reading. Like we are our living records, okay? And we have the right to access them. But like I said to you before, remember we were talking the brainwave patterns? We can't access them in our normal day-to-day consciousness. So if I'm cooking and moving around or whatever, now it doesn't mean I can't cook and access the records, right? It's kind of like I can take a shower and access the records. I can be gardening. So what we're actually doing is encouraging mindlessness, is getting out of the thinking mind, having that. And to do that, relaxation is a big key to that, whatever that is for you. Okay. And to get out of the lamenting mind or the constantly processing mind, right? You need to dump it, journal it, get it out of your mind and then go, okay, it's there. You're meditating, something comes up, write it down. So you can say, and then hand it over. Help me.
Mm.
Help me know how to navigate this. I hand this over, right? Because we have a direct access all the time, 24/7. We're never not connected. We forget we're connected and therefore feel disconnected, right? But when we connect with our self, then we're accessing, right? Our higher self, we're accessing that wisdom pool. And when we're accessing that wisdom pool, we're saying, bring to me what I need in this dream, because we're in a dream. This isn't the reality. This is the dream. And bring to my dream everything I need so that I can live a prosperous, abundant, healthy, whole, connected life filled with love and grace and ease and harmony and peace and tranquility and calmness. Right? Help me know how to create that space, right? One of the things I do is Feng Shui. Everybody can do Feng Shui at the level of bringing a space of beauty and calm around them. Beauty is the soul's, right? It's one of the soul signatures is beauty. And we feel it. And maybe beauty, is in the eyes of the beholder. So what's beauty to you? Create beauty in your space. How can you create beauty in your life? That's a way to bring yourself closer to your own records, right? It triggers a different brainwave pattern, right? Music, listen to music that opens your heart, connects you with your little mojo,
Right.
your personal mojo. Yeah. Right. Because it puts a smile on your face,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's connecting when we can smile. I mean, what did I do when I opened the records? What did I say to you guys? I was like, did you just see it? Like the energy just lifted. It was like,
Did it put a big smile on your face?
it did. I know. Yeah.
Now we're coming up to a really interesting time of the year. A lot of people making New Year's resolutions. And about a month from now, a lot of people breaking those New Year's resolutions and really beating themselves up. And I'm sure there's some statistics somewhere, but I feel like you don't even need statistics to know that the end of January, most of February is some of the most depressing months for most people because they've already blown through their New Year's Eve resolutions. So with your background, what guidance, wisdom, advice can you provide to our listeners who are putting that together right now, fine tuning that so they can fully commit when that 1/1 resolution comes? And maybe you're against New Year's resolutions, that's fine too. But what advice can you have for our listeners who are thinking about that right now?
Great question. And I think there's a couple of different things. One would be start now, right? It's really working working with your being as instead of the mind, right? Because that's even the mind wanting to be in charge. And I'm not saying it's always easy, right? I'm in my humanness growing and learning too. So please don't think I'm perfect. But I actually did that the other day, about a week, 2 weeks ago. I was just like, no, I'm starting now. And so that's kind of fun because it gives you this idea that there's not something out there that's going to change me. It's me making the decision now. So it doesn't even matter if New Year's comes and goes and it's January 17th and you're like, I'm starting something now. I'm doing something for myself now. And notice I'm using the word and they're reminding me now. We're talking now. January 1 is another now. And so there's always a now moment. So this idea that the mind kind of incorporates, a cluster of time, right? So even the Akashic records reside outside of time. We reside outside of time, but we're having the experience of time. But we actually only ever have now. So what's happening in my now? What am I judging in my now? What am I deciding in my now? What am I committing to in my now? And I think, like, let's say even like a relationship, we better be choosing that relationship every day.
Yeah.
Isn't right? Relationships don't hang around if we're not investing in them every day, right? We might be able to get away with a day or two or a week or two, but we start getting much longer, it's going to be like, right? You're separating. So it's like we feel that separation even in ourselves when we're moving away from our truth. So it's not something that's outside of us and some goal and I'm going to get da da da. No, it's an internal feeling. And I love the hype. Welcome back. I love the 1%. Did you go journey without us into the Akashic records? And
Yeah, I think my team decided I was getting too much quality information in one go, so they wanted to give me a
you
break.
can listen back.
You literally got cut off right when she was saying, you could not have technology, and it was like, bam.
I have to watch my words. I get the message. Thank you, Chuck. So anyway, just to complete the answer, right? There's the 1%. I think that's a really powerful tool. How can I invest 1% improvement to move forward today? What's 1%? And 1% can look simply like the way I've done it is you can have an idea. Let's say it's to get better sleep, right? And so, what are the 5 things that might be helping me get better sleep? Well, maybe I'm brushing my teeth and preparing at 9 o'clock to be in bed at 10. So, right, I'm preparing beforehand. That's my 1%. And boy, I can be proud of that 1%. If that got done, I feel good about myself that day. I've moved myself forward. And if that's the same thing I do over and over again, that's okay. Until what? Until it becomes a habit. Now I've got a good habit. And now what's my other 1% that might sit on the back end of that, right? For example, like if we're talking physical wellness, it could be, I need to sit down at a table to eat on a consistent basis, not running around, working at my desk, that kind of thing, or just on the fly and barely paying attention. No, my 1% today is going to be this. So that brings it into bite sizes. It brings it into can do this. It's not too big for me. And that's what happens when we get these goals that are so big. We don't know how the heck we're going to get there. Well, the Akashic will say one step at a time. So what's the one step, right? We don't get to this level without all these steps in between. So I hope that helps.
For
Is
sure.
that, yeah.
That's great advice. So when we or our viewers or you access this wisdom of the Akashic records to clear blocks, does information about past lives often come through? And can you share any specific stories, today where it was actually rooted, like someone's symptoms was rooted in a past life?
Well, so it's interesting. So a lot of people think of Akashic records actually as if it's all about the past life, and it's a mistaken understanding. It's records not because it's a recording of the past, but that it's an actual recorder, right? The Akasha records. Okay. And so when we're in the records and we're talking about the records and what comes from and through the records is everything about now. Again, that's all they exist in. That's all that exists is now. So anytime that they're communicating with us, it's in the now moment. So the worst session I ever had, and I said, Spirit, I can't do that ever again, was somebody who came and only wanted, and I haven't gotten, I've never had anybody, I've had one person in 25, almost 25 years do this. And that was, I'm here just to know about my past. And it was the flattest, most boring, deadest session ever. And I was like, gosh, that was horrible. And so, because I was like, we're curious, and I get that in our humanness, but the curiosity we want to satiate has to do with how to be the best version, the most whole, right? Healing means to return to wholeness. So what do I need to heal so I am whole again? Now, if the past, right, if a past story, a past experience, as in your case, Chuck, right, the past was relevant today. If it's not relevant, it's not showing up because it's not active and alive and helpful, right? So they bring forward the most helpful and hopeful information. If it's not helping and it can't be delivered in a way that you can, let's say, receive it, because listen, we've done it all. We've been there and done it. And some people are like, I've never killed anybody, right? We think we haven't. We come to have these different experiences. And so pay attention to what you judge, right? I can judge him. He did this. He killed people. And it's in the records, there's no judgment.
People have probably come to you, right, Kelly, that have symptoms, that have pain, that have suffering. Let's just say it's physical pain. Maybe think of a client that has had physical pain and they've had a couple sessions with you or one or however many, and you've tapped into some past life stuff that it was from. Does that pain go away instantly as soon as you tap into that and the realization of the comes into effect?
I'm going to address that in a couple of different ways. Number one, it can, right? Those are what we call miracles. And miracles happen when we are in the vibration of unconditional love. There's nothing separating you anymore between pure love, which is who you are, and the experience that you're having. I have not had clients have that exactly in the way that you're speaking of, right? Like I've had cancer and now I don't. I went to sleep and I wake up and I don't have, right? I went and had that. What I work a lot with is people who, and I get this, right? I think we all can relate to this, where the mind is so entrenched in its own way of being and thinking. It takes time for the mind to let go. It takes time, right? So yeah, they're correcting me, to help shift consciousness from a rooted, entrenched way of being takes time. And it's like, first of all, you have to be willing to see, what do they say, right? About any addict, half the battle is, right? Half the battle is saying, I've got a problem, acknowledging, recognizing I got an issue. When you have people come and go, this person, this person, that, I got a problem here, right? And so I have had clients come with health stuff. I had one quite a few years ago, and very, very big health issue, very big health issue. And we worked for quite a while together. And so the health issue, remember, the health issue is in the physical, but it started outside the physical. And so we had to work on unforgiveness, unloving beliefs, trapped emotions, things stuck in the body, and work at the physical level as well, right? Do that energy work. I remember one time where like I'll work through the client with their medical team and I'll be like, okay, here's what the guides, the masters and teachers are saying. Please ask your doctor. And I remember one time she started reading off her medicine. I mean, she had a hole in her body that was packed, that had to heal from the inside out. It was just like, wow, this is serious stuff, right? And I remember she listed one of the meds and I just saw a big skull and crossbones. I went, oh gosh, please go back and double check that because it feels like it's poison to your body. Sure enough, she came back and she goes, they got it right. And I was like, wow. So it was blocking healing. from taking place, right? That's not going to help when you have the wrong medicine being introduced. So, right, it's like I want them to work with their team to go, okay, here, and they'll guide, go do reflexology, go do acupuncture, go do things that are going to bring health and wholeness to you. But there was a lot of emotional stuff going on in the family, and it was rooted in past life stuff. So it was like different choices being made, roles being reversed, jealousy, rage, anger, all kinds of things that were like, they're showing me kind of like a Tasmanian devil and like, a dirt ball just like spinning around. Like, you got to slow that down. You got to let the dust settle a little bit so you can start pulling out, right? The threads and the strings that are making that entangled,
Mm.
which actually represented how her body was handling it. It was like this knot. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, amazing. Kelly, you've been so gracious and have not plugged your company in your services very much at all. Not You could have easily, and you have just been answering the questions left and right and giving us readings. And I know it's not. Is it called a reading?
It is a reading, right? It's a channeling, it's a reading. And it's interesting. I was given, it's kind of to what they shared with you, Ed. over 15 years ago, I have a little sign and it was, I have God's work to do. So I love what I do and I love
Me
helping
too.
people and I love the ahas, right? Like whatever. I like that, right? The silent yes. Because it just makes everybody better and it makes the world better. So thank you for saying that, but it's definitely a passion.
I hope that so many listeners and viewers get this far in the episode. Obviously, we'll do some magical editing, and we're not going to cut out a lot because there's too much goodness in here. But it's not going to be 2 hours. Let's be real. But I hope they get this far to realize how amazing you are and how much, if anyone's yearning for this type of reading, that Ed and I were so lucky to support. That Ed and I were so lucky to get in this episode right here with you. I hope they reach out to you. We'll include all of your contact information in the description below, so that way they can reach out to you. And like you mentioned before, if the listeners want Kelly to create a class just for you, Masters of Wellness class, she'd be happy to do that. Comment below so that we can get that going. And I have one last question for the Akashic team. What do we title this thing so that we can get a lot of viewers?
Well, you already said Akashic Records, right? That was they like that. I think there's
Is your anxiety from the past? In parentheses, Akashic Records explained.
say it again, right? Because you had a title. What is
Yeah,
it?
yeah. The tentative one was, is your anxiety from the past? Mark, Akashic Records explained.
But we never really talked about that.
We did not, did we? Which is fine. It was a.
Oh, it reminded me if actually the term super conscious, we have talked about the super conscious. We have talked about that being in the Akashic Records. So you can tie those together, accessing the super conscious through the Akashic Records.
Boom.
And by the way, they want to add one more thing because this is important. It's going to organically go exactly where it needs to go. Right? So
Amen.
none of us have to be in the way of that. Right? So we open our hearts to say, universe, take this and bring it to everybody that is going to benefit from it. Right? Because like us in our own lives, we don't want stuff wasting our time. We don't need what's not going to help us. Right? So it's an interesting posture, right? The whole idea, I've always found it fascinating, this idea of sales, right? What if instead of 1 out of 10, you got 1 out of 1? So you hit the right people, not just any people, right? So the right people are going to go past that 3, 5, 10, 20-minute mark.
Sure. Yep. And if they don't, that's okay. But hopefully the algorithm realizes that the universe wants people to see this, that more people see it, that need to see it. So then they'll push it out, right? And that's sort of the game that we got to play right now is, if a lot of
So
people.
wait a minute, sorry. I can feel the tension building. Like, we got to do this. But do you feel that? Do you feel a shift in the vibration?
A
Right?
little
It's like we
bit.
got
More of a disagreement with them.
to.
I said it was more of a disagreement with them. Like, yeah, but there's a YouTube algorithm that, you know, if more eyeballs can see it, more people will realize they need it to hear this.
So they're not disagreeing with that, right? So here's the like the shift, if you will. The distinction is, oh, that's the way to move in harmony with what the platform can do so that I reach the audience. But there's a different vibe. There's no nervousness about it, in other words.
Sure.
That makes sense? Yeah.
Yeah,
It's just like, I'm gonna have fun
a calm
figuring
knowing.
out. Huh?
Yeah.
Sorry.
You mean like a calm knowing?
Right. It's
Yeah.
just like, I'm not pushing upstream here. I'm finding out where the stream is, and I'm gonna flow in it and have a good time. Right? Get on my surfboard. So you guys just ride your surfboards, enjoy yourself through the algorithms and navigate,
Yep.
right? Yeah.
And that's kind of the game that we've been playing. We've been sitting in the chum for, you know, the last, I don't know, 9, 10 months, and it's fine. We've been having a great time. Truly, we have, and this is another example of that. What we are kind of enjoying, but you know, it probably is a little bit frustrating as well. It might come off that way. Is like, how do you know? There is a certain science to everything. So, what is the science of making sure that the episode flows well so that a lot of people can follow? It's a long form, so it's kind of hard, and there's a certain style and way to do it where you're going to get a lot of people's attention, and that's ultimately the goal, because the more people that can hear your information and talk to the Akashic people, angels, I think the more people we're going to help, and that, I think that's kind of where I'm coming from.
Yeah. And you can also do like a lot of shorts out of this,
Right.
right? You do that already? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
do. We do. We certainly could do more for sure. And I think we're going to get a lot of nuggets out of this one.
Yeah, it feels like there's more that, again, right? They're going back to the idea, do more with less. So you have to do less and get more,
Mm-hmm.
right? But there's also a sense of what you guys have been experiencing. You just said the 9, 10 months. There's a lot you've learned in that time.
There is.
There's a bit of dismissal of what you've learned, that it's not valid or important. And like, if you could
Take
make
it for
that.
granted.
Right, make it bigger in your consciousness to go, wow, we got this and we got this and we got this. And now we've got a foundation that we're launching and building from this place. And they're telling me that all your guests have been well invested for you,
They
right?
have.
They're showing up and they're in their A games, if you will, right? So
They are.
you're being supported in that way.
Yeah, that's
You're right.
definitely true. And
Yeah.
another thing that just came to mind was last night, Chuck, or I guess this morning for you, when we had our meeting with Kurak discussing the book, The Science of Getting Rich. Like, that was written in 1941, I found out. And same as How to Win Friends and Influence People. That was written way, way, way back as well. But the messages and the knowledge and the wisdom that comes from those books is still teaching people today that were not even born back then. So what we are doing here is we are taking a snapshot of a moment in time. We're journaling some incredible information with Kelly S. Jones. And this now is going to exist for eternity, as long as YouTube exists. We don't know what ripple effect 25 years later someone's going to be going back through the archives of the Masters of Wellness podcast and find this exact episode, and it's exactly what they need to hear in 2050. Like, can you imagine that? Like, this is the most amazing opportunity for us, that we're imprinting this moment and this information for the future people to come. And like the, for example, a Dale Carnegie book. Actually, a really good example is the movie director, Quentin Tarantino. He made the movie Pulp Fiction 30 years ago. Can you believe it? It's 30 years ago. And when he made it, he said he's not making this movie. He doesn't really care what happens with the movie now. This was 1995, I think it was. He said he wants it to be a movie that 30 years later people can still watch, and it's incredible for them to see. And now it's 30 years later. And I remember him saying that when the first movie first came out. And if we're to watch one of his movies now, you still get the same enjoyment and messages that you got 30 years ago. So I guess what I just heard Kelly S. Jones saying is we don't need to hurry along the process of people watching this episode. We can be proud of the fact that we've got this information now, and it's going to be an episode that exists for however long in the future.
And you're creating a ripple, like through the ocean, like a wave, right? And it will go, and it will reach far and wide and be and touch the lives and hearts of those that are ready for it, that want it, that can benefit from it. And even, by the way, don't dismiss the first 2 or 3 minutes or whatever they might be doing to scroll. I mean, listen, we all have, right, time crunches. And there's a lot of, I think one of our biggest commodities today is our attention. That's what we have really to give. And it's our way of showing love, right? Showing we care is through our attention. And I will know that sometimes if I need to move through, if I need to look at a video, it's just like I'm being brought to it, and then I'm taking exactly where I need to go to listen to it.
There you go.
It's like, that's it. That's what I needed. And I don't worry about the rest of it. And it doesn't mean action's not taken on it. And it doesn't mean it's not right clicked and shared and subscribed and all of that. Very well can be.
Yeah, I love what you said, Ed, because it will forever be, and shall I say, the Akashic tube. Because that's what this is, man. Like, it's weird. We're talking about the Akashic record, and it's going to be in YouTube forever. It's not the same, obviously, but it's kind of wild.
It's recorded. It is recorded in the Akashic records. This entire conversation. Yeah. So literally we could go, who knows, 50, 100 years in the future, and somebody could be looking and going, yeah, these three got together and they were talking about this subject, and here's what they were talking about. And here's how the needle moved, right? For each one of us, right? Each one of us have had a unique experience that's touched our lives in a very profound and unique way.
Yeah.
That's special.
And back 100 years ago or 50 years ago when books were being written, those people at that time had no idea that that book would one day have a different form altogether. It wouldn't be a hardcover with paper and printing on it. It would be a digital version, which they wouldn't even know what that is. So who's not to say in another 20 years, there is technology where this episode is imprinted into someone's mind without having to watch the long form, the 2 hours that we've recorded today, but the information is being put into someone's mind and they're getting something from it in a form that we don't even know exists at the moment.
You're making me think of something which is fascinating. Did you ever see, I love the movie The Matrix.
Oh yeah.
It's such a great, right, Akashic record story, but we're not going there. But when Neo was in the dojo and he got the download and he learned in minutes how to do and to me, it's really, I love watching movies from the perspective, every time I watch what's on the movies, I know it's real. It may not be real here, but in some dimension, it's real. Somewhere it's already happening simultaneously. And it's like, oh, that's where we're going. Oh, that's what's happening. Oh, that's what's coming. Oh, that's what it was in the past, right? It's fascinating. So to me, when I saw that, I was just like, oh, interesting. We'll be able to accelerate, right? We'll have that speed of knowing. And like you just said, maybe I don't have to listen for an hour or two to something. I'll have the whole conversation like that. I'll have it all.
Yeah, I've somewhat described in the past what Akashic Records where it was to people by giving them the example of, have you ever heard of things being invented from someone in North America, and the exact same thing being invented in Europe, the exact same time period. And then there's like back in like the years where there's no way they could communicate that quickly, but they just so happen to create the telephone at the exact same time. That's the Akashic Records.
They're accessing, right. So the field is available. Who's going to take that idea and move forward with it? Or how many are going to, right? And there's, again, that's like a divine timing, though. We don't need a telephone invented today, but there's other things that are showing up, right? And there's multiple people, let's say with AI, that's going on now, right? And so there's multiple showing up and they're running with it in their own way. So it's going to have a different twist or perspective.
Yeah, it
They're
keeps
good.
coming
I
to
love
me
an
that
example.
we need to open up a brick and mortar location and have videos on CDs for rent, but I think it's bad timing for that.
I think there's one Blockbuster left in the world, isn't that right?
There, I didn't know that.
They're holding strong, baby. Well, again, Kelly, you're the best. We seem to have a love fest with all of our guests because they've been awesome, but you have definitely topped the list. So thank you so much.